Welcome to Inbound Agency Journey. This is the show where inbound agency leaders share the strategies, shortcomings, and successes they've experienced in their journey toward building their dream agency. Now, here are your hosts, Andrew and Gray.
Hey Brent, welcome aboard. Happy to have you here on Inbound Agency Journey. Would you mind kicking us off by just introducing yourself to the audience and giving us kind of your brief background story and how you got to be where you are today?
Sure. Andrew, thanks for having me on this program. And you guys are putting together a really great show, and just happy to share my story with your audience. And my name is Brent Weaver, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of uGurus. We're an online business school for digital agencies. We help accelerate your success when it comes to marketing, sales, and running your business in a way that helps you lead an amazing life. And I got to that business by actually having my own agency for 12 years and really struggling for probably about 60% of those years with my business, not really getting out of the business what I wanted, namely the types of clients that we were working with and the amount of money that I was actually depositing in my account at the end of every month was not really where I wanted it to be. And I didn't really know how to solve that problem until I really started to build a great network of mentors, consultants, advisors, and other industry peers. And it's when I shifted into that mindset of, I can't do this myself. I can't just figure this all out by myself, and into that mindset of, I'm going to find the smartest people in this industry to help me build a successful business, was really where the shift happened for us. And so from 2007 to 2012, our business pretty much, we'd already been in business for 7 years, but from 2007 to 2012, our business pretty much doubled every single year until we sold the agency at about a 14-person staff to another company here in Denver.
That is awesome. I just think that's great that you guys got to that point where you're like, this isn't, it's not living up to the expectation of like why we're in business to begin with. I feel like, agencies get really frustrated, but they just kind of like keep churning and they don't take that time to step back and look at the bigger picture and say, what am I actually trying to build here? And without that perspective, you can really go a long time and spend a lot of attention and long hours and everything and build something that you look back on and it doesn't even help you get where you actually wanted to go at the beginning.
And I think, I don't know how your listeners feel about this, but I did not go to business school. I, did not say to myself when I started the business, I'm going to create a really diverse, cool digital agency. I was building websites. I was doing some digital marketing for some clients, and it started to grow into something bigger. And I wanted it to grow, but I didn't have a business school background. I didn't have an education in business or marketing or sales. I had never worked for another company before. I didn't have some, 30-year corporate tenure of building, successful relationships with Fortune 500 companies for some other agency. I didn't have any of that stuff. So I was really creating the business from scratch.
Yeah. I relate to you there. Our story, Gray and I started Guava Box from a college dorm room. So we were jumping right out in there in kind of the same way, like no previous book of business you're coming to the table with, but you learn as you go. And then, so you kind of stumbled on this idea of industry peers and saying, I can't build this by myself. What were some of the takeaways that you had when you made that realization? Like tangibly, how was that able to change the way you guys ran the business? And kind of today, how are you using that model to coach up other people and help them change their agencies?
Yeah. So I joined a business accelerator in around 2007, 2008. And I was at this event, and when we had already kind of had a couple of mentors that were helping us get out of a really sticky situation. But it was when I went to this business accelerator, and this guy comes up and starts talking about how to sell effectively. And about the first 10 minutes into his presentation, I'm thinking to myself, dear God, like I am selling in a really backwards way. I have no idea what I'm doing. I know at the time I probably had given out, up to that point, I'd probably pitched a few hundred web projects. And I was just watching this guy's talking and was going, man, I just don't know anything about actually how to sell. I mean, I've read maybe 1 or 2 books or something like that about consultative selling, but I really had never worked with somebody in depth to coach me on my habits, my language, my process, the mechanics, and really work with me through that. You can't just like read a book once and then, hope that you apply that system without some type of accountability and systems to do that. So this guy gives this presentation, and I went up to him afterwards and I was like, I want you to help me take everything that you know about sales. And this guy had actually run a sales organization that was doing a little over 1 million sales calls per year. Whoa. So he knew, he was building some pretty cool systems, understood sales backwards and forward. I was like, I just want you to come in every week for 1 to 2 hours and just help me create a rock star sales process. And then, a month later, I go to this accelerator type, this business accelerator all day kind of retreat again. And then there was somebody that came in and talked about marketing, and I'm going, oh my God, I'm just marketing my business like totally the wrong way. And so then I go up to him afterwards and I'm like, hey, I want you to come in and help me with my business, and, just come in every week and teach me how to correctly position my agency. And basically I just kept this pattern going. Every time I saw somebody give a talk about things that were going on in my business that were issues, instead of just taking notes and trying to implement myself, I just changed the dynamic to where I started paying these people to hold me accountable, to work with me every single week until I felt like I had fully integrated what they were talking about. And that method was totally different than what I had been doing before. Because before that, I was like, I didn't want to spend money on consultants, didn't want to spend money on coaches or courses or any of that kind of stuff. I'll just figure this out myself. I'll go to, I'll take some notes and self-implement everything. And when I shifted that mindset to actually getting these smart people into my business and helping me at a much more detailed hands-on level, that really changed the game for us. And some of it's accountability, but some of it's just, your business, everybody's business is a little bit different. So when you got this guy up there giving this keynote of, here's the sales blueprint, 12-step thing, whatever, sometimes it just needs to be tweaked. I was hiring those guys, even though it cost me probably a couple $100,000 over the last, the next few years. We got that money back and then much more.
That's awesome. I think it's cool because entrepreneurs, I think we get this like puffed up feeling like we need to like man up and just buckle down and make things happen, to make change happen. But like investing in this way and investing your time, because you have to learn this, you have to work with this guy to come in and change your processes, but then also your money. And like, if you're a growing agency, like cash flow is king, and to be able to still like invest in this, like you need to know that you're going to get a high return on the back end of that in order to make it all worth it. But just, it's really cool to see how that played out for you, and you saw kind of a benefit of that. How did that process play out from like an ROI standpoint? Was this something that you were able to just kind of continue to build on because you saw immediate success right away? Or did it take time for you to kind of learn, how best to work with a consultant in a way that can help you get that money back so that you can reinvest it in another initiative?
I mean, we happened to, when I really started that practice of bringing these people in to help, we had some, decent amount of work under our belts. We had a few person team. We had, referrals and word of mouth that were delivering new opportunities to us all the time. So the cool part about it was, and this is actually a lot of what we teach in our current boot camp, is we had some lead flow, which meant that on the sales side, when we brought the consultant in, we actually got to practice a lot of what he was teaching me every week, and I could kind of report back and say, well, hey, this person said this. How should I, here's how I responded. How should I have responded? Or
Yeah.
how do I get out of the hole that I've dug myself? And so having that lead flow coming through my business, and then having a sales, coach, mentor helped me, at that time, we saw ROI immediately. And that's one of the things that in our program, when somebody does have lead flow immediate, coming through their business, they're an established agency, and then we come in and kind of, I teach you the same things that somebody taught me and that we customize and apply to agency businesses. That's why we see such immediate ROI on that type of stuff. Now, if you don't have any leads coming in and you hire a sales coach, you're actually hiring for, you're getting a consultant for the wrong part of the process. You probably would be better off hiring somebody to help you out with marketing instead of sales in that case.
Definitely. So yeah, walk me through that process because just reviewing kind of the approach that you guys offer to agencies. I think it's really cool how you weave mentors as such a kind of a cornerstone of that. Can you just kind of walk us through what it looks like to work with you guys and like how you've structured your program based on the lessons that you learned growing a successful agency?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, I always tell people, between my business partner and I, we have 34 years experience as entrepreneurs, and 24 of those years total are running our agencies. So we took that experience and have packed that into essentially a 12-week program. There's 10 weeks of small group meetings, but the entire program from start to finish really takes about 12 weeks. So we took everything that we knew and we put it into that program. But we've all taken a course before where it's got all this really great information, and we get super excited. We're like, oh my God, this course is going to change my life. I just spent my whole day watching this course, and I'm going to change everything about my business. And then you maybe implement one or two things, and the next week rolls along, and you're like, you get busy, and our client calls you, or you have a client fire to deal with, and then maybe you only complete that one thing you started last week, and then that second or third week out from whenever you watch that course, it's kind of starting to fizzle. It's starting to fade away in your mind. And so that was the experience that a lot of our customers were having when we were selling just courses. So for the first year of business at uGurus, we just sold video courses, and then I'd call customers and talk to them 3, 6, 12 months later and say like, oh, how's it going? And it was like the same story over and over. Well, I implemented that one thing. I implemented this one thing, but they weren't telling me about these like crazy results. So I changed our model and said, look, if we're going to be successful at helping agencies really turn around the issues that they're having in their business, we need to put them with real agency mentors that are above the level, basically at the level that they would like to achieve, that have successfully implemented the blueprint that we provide and have been trained on how to be a great coach and mentor. And we basically put you into a group, have you work with the mentor plus another 8 agency owners. And your mentor is there to lead those group facilitated sessions and also do one-on-one coaching and mentorship. Because sometimes there are issues that you don't want to bring up in group, that you don't want your peers to hear about, whether that's, I've heard a myriad of things, but I'll give you some generic ones like, I'm working a lot in my business and my spouse does not approve of what I'm doing, right? And this just might be a topic that they don't want to broach in the group, right? So we have that one-on-one time to really dig deep with somebody and figure out if, there are things that we can help them with, experience share, resources, templates, connections with other people in the industry. So we're firm believers in the power of our group sessions and the power of the one-on-one coaching and mentorship. And the content is, here's the proven methods, here's the checklist, here's that kind of stuff. But, to date, I've seen some people implement our methodology maybe 70 to 80%, in completeness in everything that we teach them, that they just go crazy and they're all into it. But even then, they're maybe implementing 70 or 80% of what we have advocated for. Most people, even when they successfully go through our program, they're implementing that 10, 20, or 30% of what they need to, that's going to really help their agency break through the ceiling and get to that next level. And the mentor is there to help you kind of weed out what's relevant for you and what's not relevant for you, and then hold you accountable to actually getting that stuff done in your business.
That's really cool because there's the social component of it there too, because you've got someone to look up to, but then you're looking to the left and to the right, and that there's other people there that are trying to achieve the same goals that you are. And that's going to be a really cool dynamic to kind of pull each other through and help each other in that context.
And Andrew, I'm sure you've been in a situation where, another agency owner says like, oh, I just want a project with XYZ client, or I just want a project at XYZ price or whatever. And you just hearing that builds your confidence and makes you think, okay, if that guy over there can do it, or that girl over there can do it, or whatever, I bet, of course I can do it too. And especially once you get to know those other agency owners, that helps out a lot. And that's the other thing that I'd say is that for the first 7 years of my business, I looked at the other agencies in Denver as my competitors, as people that I, was secretly jealous of and was very, I don't know, it just got crazy emotions going. Whenever I'd like see their websites or they'd update their brand, I'd be like, oh, like I'd be like really
Not
like
again.
mad, or yeah. And I'd see their clients like, oh my God, they got Chipotle as a client, like, or whatever, right? Like I would be very like, I just view them as competition, because I think I was trained that in a capitalist market, you have competitors and you have to compete against them. And that's, all those movies in the 80s and 90s or whatever, just like kind of created that atmosphere in my head of like, these are my competitors, I need to beat them. But the reality is when I changed my mindset from they're my competitors to they're my friends, they're the people that I can learn from, there are other people like me, and we need to work together to further our industry, to further our local market. When I shifted that mindset, that was huge too. So instead of thinking that I had all these trade secrets, which, I don't know if it's a public service announcement or not, but there's not a lot of service businesses out there that actually have like real trade secrets.
Amen.
But like so I was always scared to talk about that stuff and like posturing or whatever. And then I was like, screw it. Like, I'm just going to tell them everything that I know about my business. And then, so I'd start like, having conference calls with my competitors, these people who I'd, stalked their websites in the middle of the night, like a year or two before, and get all like worked up. I just started like reaching out to them and saying, hey, I'm Brent. I've got an agency across town. We should have lunch together. And then those lunches turned into like lunches where 2 or 3 agencies would come and hang out. Then it turned into, small get-togethers and things like that. And we all shared a lot. I'm sure there's a lot of things that we weren't willing to share, but there was times where people were like, hey, I'm really struggling and I need some help. And then, other agency owners would kind of jump in and help them figure out what those problems were for them. I think because humans are like very social creatures, we want to help other people in our nature, right? So I think when you shift your mindset from other people in my industry or my competitors to they're my friends, or they're people that I can help and help me, that's always a better mindset.
So did this kind of lead to the start of uGurus, kind of just, doing life this way, and then you kind of learned, hey, I love to teach, I love to connect people and help them out there? Like, how did you make the jump after you exited the agency into what you've got now?
So 2 years before I sold the business, I started to blog about running a digital agency, and it was kind of in this Adobe community of the Business Catalyst content management system e-commerce platform. And so I created this blog called BC Gurus, and I was just literally like blogging about being a Business Catalyst agency and the types of things that I was doing to grow our business. I'd carry a camera around with me, and I'd throw it on a tripod. And so my early videos are like totally atrocious. I'd be like in a hotel room and it looks like I've been kidnapped or something. And they're just like, the video is really bad. And I try not to go back and watch that stuff very often. But I started to blog about running an agency and creating these videos. And I, created an email list and started to email people. And I got this in the mail one day. I got this letter. It was a 6-page letter with a photo of this gentleman and his daughter playing soccer. And this letter basically told me that this guy had reached his wit's end. He wasn't able to support his family. His business was failing. Nobody in his life respected him, and he couldn't spend time with his kids, which is ultimately what he wanted to do. And he felt like he really was a failure as a parent and as an entrepreneur. And he stumbled upon our blog and my videos, and he had started applying the stuff that we taught. And within 3 or 4 months of really consuming our content, consuming our information, he completely turned his business around, like tripled his monthly revenue. And it just totally changed the game for him. All of a sudden, he had clients that he loved working with. He was actually making enough money to cover all of his expenses every month, and then put additional money into retirement and savings and all this kind of stuff. He was making legitimate money from his business, as he should, as all agency owners should. And he was able to then go play soccer with his daughter. So he went out of his way to send me this photo and this letter, right? And I don't know about you, but to date, I had never gotten a 6-page letter from any of my web clients. And I had some amazing clients over the time period and had done some really fun and amazing work. But that 6-page letter really moved me. And then we got a lot more over the next year or so like that. We started just getting more and more of this fan mail in about what we were doing. in the agency education space. And we were making some decent side money there. It's kind of like we were packaging up our exhaust and selling it out the back of the business, which is what, I learned from 37 Signals and in some of their early books that they had written. And so it was generating some revenue. And my partner and I just started talking. We're like, like maybe we should go do this full time. Maybe this is like a whole business. Maybe instead of just doing this on the side, this could be our main thing. So we decided to make that shift in 2012.
That's fantastic. What a cool story to just hear how just the thing that you were doing on the side in your free time is like changing lives and giving that guy more time with his daughter. And really cool that he reached out and shared that with you. That's awesome. One thing that I see popping up a lot when I'm talking with agencies that are kind of at that rock bottom point, they want to change, but they're stuck in their old ways, is this issue of time. And like, I'm already busy, I'm already stressed out, my calendar's already packed. How do I block the time and make the time to really do the things that I need to do to change? Do you guys have any tips or any helpful insights for agencies who find themselves in that place where they feel like they're trapped by time to just escape that and do the work that they need to do on their business?
So we have some tools that we use. So one of the things as our folks that come in our program, as they get into like more of our advanced material, we've got some tools that we use from EOS, or Entrepreneur Operating System, the book Traction. One of the tools that I always have people do is the Delegate Elevate exercise, which is to write look at your calendar, look at your hour tracking system or whatever for the last 3 or 4 months, and basically on a lined sheet of paper, write out everything that you do in the business, working on the business or in the business, whatever, right? So if it's like, billable work, like, okay, I design websites, do accounting, accounts payable, collections calls. I mean, as a business owner, everybody kind of has their own 8 hats that they wear, but, writing out all of the activities that you do in your business is a really good start. So you write out all your activities. And for me, I do this exercise every 2 or 3 months. So, and it's something you need to do often to kind of continuously update. So once you've written out all of the things that you've done in your business for the last, let's say 4 to 6 months, then what you want to do is you want to separate those tasks into 4 different buckets or boxes, right? So basically you can take another piece of paper and create like just a basic grid, like draw like a big plus sign on the paper. And on the bottom right is the things that you don't like and you're not good at. All right. So and then the thing at the bottom left is the things that you don't like but you're kind of good at them. Top right is things that you're that you like doing that you're good at, and the top left is things that you love doing that you're good at, or great at rather. And so then you take your sheet of all the activities that you've been doing for the last 6 months, and you copy those over to the appropriate box. And this exercise is really helpful, and it literally takes, spend an hour on it, really like brainstorm and get everything that you're doing in your business. Because I find in my business, there's those things that, that I am spending time on that I really don't like doing, that suck the life out of me. Maybe it only takes an hour for me to do collections phone calls, but then it makes me like brain dead for another 3 hours or something like that, right? Because it's like, not only is this an activity that I'm not even that great at it, but I also don't like doing it. And so it's something that I logically, I look at that activity as only taking an hour, but because I don't like doing it, I procrastinate. And it creates this mind share in my head of, God, I got to get to that collection stuff. God, I got to get to that collection stuff, right? And it creates that additional noise. And then maybe after I'm done doing it, I'm just really not an effective human being afterwards, because it's just something that I really don't like doing. And so what you end up doing with this exercise is figuring out what you need to either delegate, get rid of in your life, or automate as soon as possible. Everything that's below the line, anything that you don't like doing, you should really figure out how to get somebody else to do that. Maybe there's somebody else in your team, like share your Delegate Elevate with your team and say, is there anything that is over here in these boxes that anybody else in the company loves doing? It could turn out that there's, my VA goes, oh, collections. I love doing collections.
I love collecting.
Or she says, oh, that's something I can do and I'm willing to get paid $25 an hour for it. Sweet. right? Boom, there's one thing that's gotten off my plate. Now I might need to go spend an hour or two creating some documentation and, some metrics that I can track so that I can keep somebody else accountable for that. But that exercise is something that I do often, and I would recommend that anybody else do as often as they can, because there's things that you are doing right now that maybe need to get done for your business, but they're not the best use of your time. So what we want to do is help you elevate yourself into the things that you're great at, that you love doing, and be ruthlessly honest with yourself about this. So if there's things that come up that you don't like doing, like sales or marketing, these are essential parts of your business. So it might become time for you to either focus on building a system and finding a team to start selling and marketing your business, maybe hiring an agency to market your business for you. Even though you're an agency, that's fine. You can do that. Or finding a business partner or whatever it is, finding somebody that can go do that stuff that you don't like doing. I've talked to so many agency owners that actually don't like to really market themselves. And so if you don't like doing it, find somebody else that does like doing it, get that thing off your plate, free up your time, and also, work on scaling that aspect of your business.
That's great. And I really like the point you said about just being relentlessly honest with yourself. Because if you don't like to market your business, like, that's not going to change the fact that you do need to market your agency or you're out of business. So it doesn't help you to kind of try to put on rose-colored glasses and look at the business as the way you want it to be rather than the way that it is. And I think that tool and the assessment that you just shared was fantastic. One last question for you is around this idea of mentors and connecting with peer groups. If there's someone listening who is intrigued by that idea but has never done something like that before, or maybe feels intimidated by something like that, would you have any tips that you would share about how they can connect with people in their local area or even online to help kind of grab some of that external accountability?
Sure. So I think finding a mentor is good, but it can be kind of a little bit strange to just email somebody and be like, "Hey, will you be my mentor?"
It's a little creepy.
Yeah. I don't know you. All right. So what we typically recommend, if you're, obviously we have programs where it's more of a pay to play arrangement where, you can go through our programs and we match you with a mentor, and like there's very clear rules of engagement there. But if you're just looking for people to give you advice or mentorship, a good place to start is asking for very specific advice. Going to them and saying, "Hey, I see that you're another agency here or you're an agency like us, but you're in a different geographical area, and I see that you're super successful. I'd love to get on a call with you and just ask you, pick your brain a little bit of what's working and what's not working." Like, that's a really good first step towards having a conversation with somebody, seeing if there's chemistry. It's kind of like a first date. And then if you guys kick it off, then maybe that turns into something more substantial, like an accountability buddy type relationship or a mentor-mentee type relationship. But typically something doesn't evolve into a full-on mentor relationship until there's really a strong relationship there where both sides of that equation are getting something out of it. So if somebody is, a veteran agency owner and they're kind of, they've made a lot of money and they've been successful and they're looking to leave their legacy, looking to help other people, that's a good reason that a mentor would invest time in that relationship. And then obviously from a mentee perspective, you're getting that expert guidance out of that. So it's sometimes a little bit weird to go and ask somebody for, to be your mentor, but it's not weird to email somebody and say, "Hey, I'd like some advice on this." And then the other thing I'd say is probably one of my best mentors for the most years of my life, where I had this really intense mentor-mentee relationship, was actually somebody that was in one of the markets that we served. So it wasn't even an agency owner. It was actually somebody that owned a restaurant here in Denver and also had a nonprofit arm. And we just forged a relationship because I, helped out his business, kind of got in the door with him, didn't even really realize how influential he was in our community. And we, forged a really strong bond. We, over the 7 or 8 years that we worked together, I helped him with huge nonprofit events. We raised over $1 million at just a single event. I went to Ethiopia 4 different times with him. He hooked us up with clients in the nonprofit, probably, almost 7 figures worth of business in just the nonprofit sector. hooked us up with introductions to probably 30 or so of the restaurant clients we had over the years, including Breckenridge Brewery, which turned into InBev, Anheuser-Busch InBev or whatever, that they're all merged now. So that's a publicly traded company that was one of our clients. So, your mentor, don't just think, oh, I'm an agency owner, I need an agency owner as a mentor. Maybe you serve a market. Maybe you serve the education niche. Maybe you serve, the manufacturing niche. It's possible for you to get a mentor in the market you serve that can actually help you, educate you on the market that you're looking to grow in, become your champion in that market, kind of vouch for you with other people in that market, help open doors for you. So that's something that was probably, that was a huge turning point for our business.
That's really neat, and it's cool that he brings an outside perspective, like within the industry that you want to grow in, but totally different business model and business type. So you can still get a lot of value from that model. Brent, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for sharing so much great stuff. Specifically, I'm so excited you guys are Traction fans and you're talking through the EOS, because that's awesome. If they're just fired up right now and they want to learn more about the programs you guys offer or kind of the methodology that you walk people through, what's the best place for them to go to learn more?
Yeah, Andrew, I'm happy for any of if your listeners have listened this far, you can shoot me an email, Brent, Brent, at uGurus.com. And I'm happy to actually give you one of our courses for free. We've got a couple courses on our website that we sell for $200. And if you guys are listeners to this podcast, I'd be happy to give you one of those courses at no charge, and also set up a 60-minute strategy call with you. So just shoot me an email and just say, hey, was listening to you on the Do Inbound podcast or the agency show, and I'm happy to get you that course access and that strategy call.
Very cool. Thanks so much, Brent. That's awesome. So guys, if you want to take advantage of that, just shoot Brent an email and thank him for being on the show here too and sharing all this great advice. This has been awesome, and thanks so much, man.
All right. Thanks, Andrew.